Hello, everyone, and welcome to our How KCK Created a Culinary Adventure That Engaged Thousands webinar. I know some people are still jumping on, so we'll give everybody a little bit of time to get into the webinar. But we're so excited for those of you who are joining us today and those of you who will pop on later. This webinar will be recorded and placed on bandwango.com. So future viewers, if you're joining us, welcome. Hopefully you have, geared up for this. This is a tasty conversation. We have Alan Carr from Visit Kansas City, Kansas joining us today. Thanks so much for taking the time, Alan.
Thanks for having me.
And our friend from Madden Media, Kim Thompson. We're so excited to hear from her and talk through the media piece for this trail. So thanks so much, Kim, for being part of this. All right. Okay. So we've got a handful of attendees. Let's just jump right in. The first thing that we're going to talk through is really kind of the basic facts about the Taco Trail so that everybody knows, what it's all about before we really get into the nitty-gritty of how it worked, what success looked like, and what Kansas City, Kansas did right that people can learn from and maybe take some inspiration from. So Alan, I know that you have a few slides to share with everybody today. Do you want to kind of guide us through this first part and then we'll jump into questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. I'm really excited to share this trail that's really part of a bigger strategic plan that we have to kind of brand and market Kansas City, Kansas. So I just want to run you through kind of some of the basics of what we were trying to achieve here and what's happened with the trail and how we've organized it. The first thing I always like to talk about when we talk about Kansas City, Kansas is just where we are, because it's a little bit confusing. I think a lot of people have heard of Kansas City and they know of Kansas City, but people may not realize that there are actually two Kansas cities. There's Kansas City, Missouri. That is the larger city. It's got the big skyline. It's where the Chiefs and the Royals play. And that's on the Missouri side. And then we're on the Kansas side, and we're Kansas City, Kansas. So we're a totally separate city. Smaller than Kansas City, Missouri. I have about 1/10 of the budget that the tourism office has over there. And so we know that visitors come to Kansas City, but we're really working on building our brand and what's unique and special about Kansas City, Kansas. And that's really, I think, where this trail project came in. So in terms of just a little bit more about who we are and what we try to do, so we really have three main audiences that we target. The first are regional families, and those are folks that want to go out to what I call our ready-made attractions. So we've got a great shopping area, a Great Wolf Lodge. So you've got attractions and hotels and those adventures that if you're a family, it's already put together for you. So you book your trip and you're there and you can go and have a great time. We've got a lot of sports as well. We've got a NASCAR track. We've got our professional soccer team. So we know that drives a lot of people out there. One of the other things we've discovered is, and I'm relatively new, I came on about a year ago, is we're really wanting to promote more of our neighborhoods. That was something that as a tourism office, we really weren't doing a lot of. And so we identified this new audience for us that we called urban explorers. And these are people that are really interested in those authentic, local neighborhood experiences. And so this was something we hadn't really tackled a lot as a community. And so we started looking at how can we better talk about and highlight our neighborhoods. And I think one of the things that's really unique and interesting about our story is that we are a very diverse community, both in variety of experiences, but also ethnically diverse. We actually don't have a majority ethnic population. So we have large numbers of Latinos, large numbers of African American, Native American, Asian, so a lot of immigrant populations that over the last couple decades or centuries really have settled here in Kansas City, Kansas. So we want to do a better job of showcasing the neighborhoods and the cultures and the traditions that those groups have brought into Kansas City, Kansas, and tell those stories. And so what we landed on, and the way we want to do that, is through this trails initiative. And we're talking trails, we're talking about these theme trails, not necessarily a physical trail that someone would follow, but a theme trail that can take people through different experiences in Kansas City, Kansas. And so our plan with this audience is to launch a series of trails over a number of years. And when we looked at where to start, it became really obvious to us that we needed to start with tacos. And as I've talked to people about this, it's one of those things that's maybe unexpected. I know you don't think Kansas maybe and tacos. That doesn't sound like that should go together, but that's part of this story that we're telling here in Kansas City, Kansas. It's really true and authentic to who we are and our brand, is the fact that we have these great immigrant communities from Mexico and Central America that have come and settled here in Kansas City, Kansas, and have brought their great traditions with them, including a ton of taquerias and taco restaurants. And so we put this trail together to really showcase that heritage here. And we're really excited of what's happened. So just some of the basic details. So our trail includes more than 50 restaurants. So these are restaurants here in Kansas City, Kansas that serve tacos. We wanted to use an online platform. So we are working with Bandwango that has set up an online pass for us that people can download and go and experience the trail. And then we also wanted to give incentives for people to go and participate. And so we do have gamification included, and so that you can earn prizes by checking in. A couple other things I want to mention. We really wanted to make this easy for our restaurants. More than 50 restaurants, which it's quite a lot to be included on a trail. But we know a lot of the places that we're focusing on are small businesses. They're these small mom and pop businesses. A lot of them are immigrant owned businesses. A lot of them are Spanish only speaking businesses. So it created some challenges for us to be able to get everyone on board and involved. So one of the things that was really clear to us from the beginning is we want everyone to be involved, but we also don't want to put any heavy lifting on them. So by using the pass and setting up check-in through geolocation, there's actually nothing that the restaurant has to do for people to participate in this trail. So that was one of the things that was really important to us. We also wanted to make sure we made it easy for visitors and people that were using the trail to find different restaurants. So we organized it in a couple different ways. We organized it by area of town. So we divided our area into 4 different neighborhoods, so you could find restaurants in those neighborhoods. And then we also looked at type of food. So as I've gotten more familiar with the taco culture across that the immigrant communities have brought in, we really kind of focused on 3 different types of tacos. What we call those authentic Mexican tacos. I think in the U.S. we're kind of more referring to them as street tacos. So those flavors that come from the different regions of Mexico, and that's the majority of the places that you'll find on our trail. We also know Tex-Mex is very popular here in the United States, and so we do have some of those locations. So if you want those types of tacos, that kind of crispy taco with a lot of toppings on it, that you can find those on the trail. And we also wanted to include some unique places that they're not taquerias necessarily, but they're doing something unique. So we have a barbecue place that does burnt-in tacos once a week. So we've got some of those kind of special experiences as well that visitors can experience. And as I mentioned, gamification was really important to us. So we set an escalating series of prizes, so 4 different prizes that you can win. You go to 5 restaurants, you get a decal. You go to 15 restaurants, you get a bottle of salsa. We partnered up with a local vendor that makes salsa. You go to 30 restaurants, you get a T-shirt. And if you visit all 50, I think it's around 52 places on our trail, you get a championship flag. And then we've also created a wall of fame here in our office and also virtually, where you can have your face and your name added to that wall of fame. We've had a ton of people explore the trail. We've already given away, I think we're approaching almost 450 prizes, and we've already had at this point 8 people that have actually completed the trail. So, I think it's been a great platform that we've started, but one of the things that has helped us be successful is having a robust marketing campaign so that we can take what we've created in terms of the experience and make sure more people hear about that. And our paid media campaign has been really one of the keys to that. And so I want to turn it over to Kim Thompson with Madden Media to talk to you about how they've coordinated that campaign for us.
Thanks, Alan. And thanks everyone for joining us today. We hope that you have some good takeaways from this presentation. And I will say that this has been one of the most fun campaigns I've ever worked on, because who doesn't love tacos? So I'll jump in real quick to how some of our media planning, just some basic things that we did. Facebook, we were able to use the deep targeting, and then we were able to, we really kept the geo-targeting close to home for the first phase, which was October through December. We stayed within like 100-mile radius, and then we just recently launched phase 2, and we've taken that geo radius out a little bit. We used Google to remarket to people who had landed on the Taco Trail page, so that we could remarket to them with a kind of a different message as to sign up now, you missed out, that kind of message. And then we were able, this is what was really cool too, is we created lookalike audiences from the people that had signed up for the Taco Trail. So we were able to then load those audiences into our platforms and find people that have similar interests and behaviors as those that signed up for the Taco Trail. Some of our media planning that we focused on was when we were actually starting to plan, we wanted to focus on conversions, and a trail like this really makes that easy. We can really see the conversions. We can see if they're directly contributing to action and bringing direct spending to Kansas City, Kansas. We also always encourage to market towards travel intent versus just demographics only, and this is a perfect example of that. We were able to then reach out and find our media platforms that had the most shareability and the opportunity for added value reach. And in a niche campaign like this, really helps with general branding awareness as well, because it creates a tool to build remarketing pools to promote additional experiences in the community. And then the next slide, we'll go over some of the results. Again, this campaign only ran for 3 months, October through December in 2020. The total clicks to the Taco Trail landing page were over 40,000. We served up over 8 million impressions. And then this is a pretty incredible number here. The average click-through rate for the Kansas City, Kansas search engine marketing campaign is about 7%. Any campaign that had Kansas City Taco Trail in it, or a version of that, had an average of a 56.5% click-through rate. Our streaming radio reached over 200,000 people, and even better was our engagement. We had over 980 Facebook comments, 1,600 Facebook shares, and then the earned media had 47 different touches from Forbes, Fox News to Feast, and the list goes on. And I know Alan has some examples of some of that earned media coming up next.
Yeah, as Kim mentioned, I think we were able to be really successful with the launch with our paid media, and then as things went along, we were able to get a lot of great earned media, and there was a lot of organic excitement that was built up and that was being shared through social media, both locally in local markets, and then also nationally. One of the big hits that actually just happened earlier this month was Forbes. On Forbes.com, there was a travel writer we hosted who wrote a story about our taco trail. And I think what generated a lot of the buzz around the country and locally was the headline he used, America's Taco Capital, is it what you think? And, it's been one of those things that has really taken off in a huge way, and I think it goes back into, again, this story that we're trying to tell, that this is something that maybe is a little bit unexpected, but it is very authentic to who we are as a place. And we certainly have had a lot of people comment on this story. Locally, people are really excited about it. Nationally, people are very skeptical. In fact, Texas Monthly, very shortly after the Forbes story came out, ran a story that said, no, in fact, Kansas City is not the taco capital. And, I'm not going to worry one way or the other. The fact that people in Texas are talking about tacos in Kansas City, Kansas, I think is a huge win for us. And, I think any publicity is good publicity. So, I'll let others decide where the best tacos are, but we know that you can find 50 great taquerias here in Kansas City, Kansas. But all of this this attention has really driven results beyond what we expected. This shows you from when we launched in October through really, I believe just yesterday, what's happened. We saw huge numbers in October and November, but you can see when the Forbes story hit, the huge spike we saw just in those couple of days. For perspective, the numbers we've seen in March are roughly equal to the numbers we've seen in October. So that's been a great win for us. All total, we've already had over 8,300 people download our pass. That's just since we launched in October, so not even 6 full months. And we've already had roughly 7,700 people check in at restaurants, which has been, I think, a great win and a great way for us to support, local small businesses during COVID. To really be driving people into restaurants is something we're really excited about. And as I mentioned, we've really seen. You can see here. This shows you kind of signups by month. October, I actually didn't think we would ever surpass October. We had such a big month in that first month, but we've already surpassed that in March, both with the Forbes article, but also we actually restarted our paid media in March. So I think that is contributing to it as well. So that's a brief overview, and I'll turn it back over to Emily to dive in a little bit more.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know some of you are already using the chat. Feel free to use the chat or Q&A. We're going to get into kind of a Q&A portion and dig really deep on some of this data. We already have 2 comments, though, so I want to say, Jake Brown, the SEM click-through rate is bonkers. Totally in agreement on that. Kim, can you maybe shed some light on, what that meant to you guys at Madden Media, or what you learned from this campaign? Just, share with the group maybe a little bit how you guys felt about SEM in this campaign.
Yeah, usually SEM is the foundation to every marketing campaign. You want to be relevant when people are searching. So we created a campaign within the Kansas City, Kansas account just for the taco trail. We use words like Kansas City, Kansas Taco Trail, visit Kansas City, Kansas Taco Trail, KCK Taco Trail. And every one of those keyword phrases had more than a 50% click-through rate, compared to, like I said earlier, the 7%, which is the average on the overall campaign. So what we learned from that is that people were definitely searching for unique things to see and do. And the taco trail caught their eye and they clicked. The time on site, which I didn't have in my report, but the time on site when they did get to the taco trail landing page was over 2 minutes. So we learned, that people were in even during COVID, we learned that people were definitely looking for unique things to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something that we've seen here at Bandwango too. A lot of the passports that our clients launched during the pandemic, have seen crazy amounts of signups and check-ins, because I think DMOs really have a pulse on what people can do really safely in their destination. And I think it's been really cool to see how our clients have kind of adapted maybe their typical, discussion points, or even the ideas of what make their destination special, to kind of include things that are safe or easy to do, or, to Alan's point, to push people towards special locations that might have been hurting, like local restaurants and mom and pop shops.
Right, and I will also add, I think that the creative that Alan and team did is awesome. They made not only tacos look amazing, but they made it look fun and adventurous, and really, really push the experience. I also think it's very authentic. Eat tacos, get prizes. I mean, it's very simple. So I think the creative was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely drool worthy.
Yeah.
Susan Hamley has a question for Alan. Were overnight stays part of your goal? And if so, how did you achieve it? Can you just maybe speak a little bit to the sentiment of stakeholders around hotel stays, or maybe how you kind of navigated that conversation when launching this campaign?
Yeah, so absolutely, like any DMO, we're trying to get people from out of town to visit our destination and stay in our hotels. This was a little different of a campaign for us because we did launch this during COVID. This was back in October. A lot of stuff was still closed. And so we really focused more of our efforts locally than we typically would. So in addition to the spending we did on the digital campaign, we did some local billboards and local ads focusing in our metro area. And again, I think it had a twofold purpose. One was to that was the audience we felt like was the easiest audience to reach during COVID. But also, as we're trying to elevate our brand and our destination, starting with locals, I think was a really important thing for us. And again, like a lot of what we're doing with this trail is product development. We're taking these small businesses and making them bigger by joining them together in a trail. And so we felt like that was something we needed to do locally so that locals could really buy into this idea. Even locals weren't aware of the taco culture that we have in Kansas City, Kansas, which again, I think is one of the other areas we were able to be successful. It's just so unexpected, and don't underestimate the power of tacos.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think something that resonates with a lot of Bandwango clients, because we hear that a lot, just on our side as we start to build out passes, a lot of locals are the worst ambassadors for their destinations, and we know as destination marketers that friends and family are a huge contingent. And so, I preach a lot, let's empower those people to invite their friends and family to do something really cool and kind of shift the narrative. And I feel like a lot of Bandwango clients are leaning into that as they launch more of these experience passes, especially during COVID. I think it became really clear that locals and especially local businesses are what make destinations super special. And so if there's no other silver lining for the pandemic, I do feel like it kind of united locals to be more impassioned about keeping those places alive, and also, inviting friends and family to come visit them to do something that's super safe. But you touched on a really interesting point that I want to talk through with both you and see kind of the Madden perspective too. It seems like KCK's goal is to really start creating product, creating these things to do. And I'm interested to hear more about like that strategy from your perspective. How did that kind of come into the conversation of destination marketing in Kansas City, Kansas? And then Kim, I'd love if you could weigh in on this and maybe tell us if this is a trend that you see in Madden clients too, or if Kansas City is really the trailblazer, and just how Madden is kind of jumping on board with that strategy as well.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, for us, I think the struggle was we have these huge attractions that have developed over the last couple of decades here in Kansas City, Kansas, and I call them the ready-made attractions. Again, like it's something, travelers love those because you don't have to think a lot. You book your trip, you're going to the water park hotel, and you know what's going to happen, and so it's this ready-made experience for you. But we were also seeing some frustration with our neighborhoods and our local community that, well, what are you doing to kind of support our neighborhoods and locals and local businesses? And so this Trails initiative is really a response to that. It's how do we get people into our neighborhoods and support more of those small local businesses? And that the Trails was the answer to that. So to compete with these big ready-made attractions, let's create our own ready-made attraction through these trails. And so that's really, I think, what our strategy was around this, is how we can showcase different aspects of our neighborhoods through trails.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and I would just tag on to that. Alan is definitely a trailblazer. This is the most successful Bandwango program that we've done. We do have other clients using the Trails program. However, I think it's vital and important to see how you can, a DMO can find untapped resources. Like Alan said, where can we, engage further? How can we create engagement and think outside of the box? I think also when we do that, what happens is And the goal is to get people to do more within your community and stay longer.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. We get asked a lot of time, how do these programs really feed into the hotel experience? How do we make sure that our hoteliers and our stakeholders on our board see the impact of these kinds of trails? And I think, the Kansas Taco Trail is a great illustration of what we at Bandwango say a lot of times, which is, if you can shift the idea in your destination, if you can elevate your brand to be like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do when I go to Kansas City, Kansas, you're going to drive more of those hotel stays, and you're going to be a little bit more successful in reaching those audiences who are looking for a new, interesting, diverse destination to go visit. So I think that this is a perfect illustration of, a destination really taking the reins on that and, saying, we're not just going to be a ready-made attraction. We're going to kind of create an experience that's really authentic to what makes our destination special. So I think along those same lines, we've already talked a little bit about this, but can you maybe, Alan, speak to how you feel like the Taco Trail has elevated the perception of KCK as a destination, or maybe even your hope for future trail initiatives kind of, building on the success or the foundation that you've built with this first pass?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I think I would say just with a trail in general and what we've approached this as is, this is part product development, but it's also part branding and it's part marketing. It's the three of those things combined together. And that's kind of the magic mix that we were looking for. As I mentioned, I think our biggest challenge as a destination was we share the same name with another city, right? So how do we kind of create our own unique identity? And we get a lot of visitors that go to a NASCAR race or go to a Sporting KC, a soccer game. But what we discovered is those people are going to a NASCAR race or a sporting game. They don't necessarily recognize that they're in Kansas City, Kansas. So again, this is really, I see this as it's branding is so important here, and it's a way for us to create that story of who we are as a place, and we're doing that through the Taco Trail. And it's so interesting. People love food, and so I think I think there's a reason why so many trails are built around food. If you talk about Kansas City, though, tacos certainly is not the first thing that comes to mind. Everyone thinks of barbecue, and we actually had a lot of our stakeholders who kind of questioned, why aren't you launching a barbecue trail, right? That because we actually have a lot of the iconic barbecue places in Kansas City are in Kansas City, Kansas. There's several of them that are here in Kansas City, Kansas. There's already an existing barbecue trail here in town, though, that Visit KC, our partners on the other side, do. And so, we wanted to do this trail because, again, it speaks to that diversity story we're trying to tell, but it's also something that we can own. And I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points all around. We've gotten a few messages here in our chat, which I think kind of tie in together nicely with this. Kim, Jeff is asking, can you share maybe the media budget for this or just a rough outline of what you spent for those different initiatives? Smaller CVBs, I think, are tuned into this and do want to figure out if this is something that they can replicate in their destination. So maybe any advice that you would have for replicating this kind of success on a smaller spend, I think could really resonate with our watchers today.
Yeah, for sure. So this was during the pandemic and budgets were very limited. And so we just spent around $25,000 for a 3-month campaign. Our phase 2, we've added additional dollars to it, seeing the success that we had last fall. So yeah, $25,000 is not a huge campaign by any means, but we really focused on engagements. So that's where that budget really expanded with the earned media and the shares on Facebook. I kind of wanted to mention also, like we were talking about reaching out to locals. A lot of the comments that we were monitoring on Facebook were locals inviting people to come visit Kansas City, Kansas to do the Taco Trail. I know you live in Maine, but come see me. We need to do this Taco Trail. So, it's just choosing the right outlets, the right platforms, And then doing your organic posting as well was important. So I think that it's very doable on a limited budget.
Yeah. And I'll echo that too. Ed in the comments is asking, how does Bandwango help with consumer engagement? And, we try to set all of our clients up for success by telling them what we've seen work in the past and giving them a little bit of kind of a toolkit to bring back to their destination or their agency to say, this is really what Bandwango has seen work for trails like this. And I think one of the key things here is that this can be replicated on a smaller budget because I think of the impact that we see with earned media, especially. I think that is something that cannot be overstated because a lot of these trails, and I think one of the successful points of the taco trail is it's very easy to write a content piece around that. Who doesn't want to read about a taco trail? And it's a really kind of compelling thing for news stations or, those kinds of organizations to pick up and run with. And I think the really cool thing about this trail too is that it inspired such kind of like a spin-off or like a head-to-head competition. I'm a Texan, and I was telling my friends about, this kind of amazing impact that the Taco Trail has had and Texas Monthly's response. And now they're like, well, we've got to go test them. We've got to go see what the difference is so that we know for ourselves, like, who has the best taco. And I think, it kind of creates this interesting collaboration possibility with other destinations too. One of the things that I tell our clients is that some successful campaigns come from challenges, challenging your social media visitors to actually do it. Invite your friends. Here's how we can incentivize you. Or, hey, Kansas City, I'm Austin, Texas, and I'm ready to take you on in terms of these tacos. Like, let's figure out who has the best taco here. Bandwango's platform is super versatile. So you've got the opportunity to do some kind of interesting things within those partnerships that you have the possibility to create on your end. So I would say from a high level, Bandwango definitely has several tools that we offer to clients for consumer engagement, like back-end messaging, so free text messages and emails that can be sent out to pass holders. We also do free graphic design for clients. So a lot of our clients take us up on that for pieces of collateral that they put at locations on the trail, videos that sometimes they'll post on social media. And I would say, to Kim's point earlier about SEM being the foundation for a lot of paid media campaigns, what we see as the foundation for a truly successful long-term passport is website linking strategy. You guys, as DMOs are driving so much traffic to these websites. If you can find a way to fit the taco trail into some compelling content into your itineraries or blog posts, you're going to see that you're able to drive signups and keep people engaged for longer. So hopefully that answers your question, Ed. I know we have a few other questions about kind of the gamification component on this. So I'll ask Amy's question next. On the gamification, did we require purchase at each location since you're using geolocation check-ins? And I think this will be an interesting kind of question to also talk about how we handled cheaters on the trail. So Alan, do you want to kind of field Amy's question there, and then we can talk a little bit more about maybe people who didn't follow the rules?
Yeah, it's so interesting. And we had a lot of discussions early on about how we should structure this trail and how it should work. And my point of view and what we ended up doing is we wanted as many people as possible, and I mean as many restaurants, to be able to be as part of the trail. And that when we decided to go with that, it meant that we couldn't really require a purchase because it was somewhat hard reaching all of the restaurants. As I mentioned, we had some that were Spanish only speaking. These were a lot of small businesses. We had people in our office reaching out to all the restaurants, and I can tell you some that say that they keep hanging up on us is they weren't interested. Right? They didn't understand what we were trying to do. And so we just made the decision that if you're a place that serves tacos in Kansas City, Kansas, you are automatically added to the trail. So there was nothing the restaurant needed to do. The trade-off of that meant that we couldn't require a purchase because there was nothing. In order to do that, we would have to have the restaurant actively participate in the pass by issuing a code or something. So what that meant was it is easier to check in, so geolocation, but it means we can't say how many people actually went and bought a taco at these places. So I don't have those statistics, but I do know that people are getting within 0.1 mile of these places because that's what you have to do in order to check in. And we have definitely seen some people that did game the system. And in the first weekend that we launched, I think we actually had two or three people that completed the trail. Now we know they didn't go in and eat tacos or buy tacos at every restaurant. We would see them in areas where there were more restaurants. They would go and, within a minute of each other, they would check in at places. And, some on our team were concerned about that. And again, and my point of view is, these are people that are going around driving around in our neighborhood. So yeah, they may not be buying tacos at all of these places, but they're still experiencing Kansas City, Kansas. And again, that's a win for us. So we're not necessarily sweating the fact that some people are earning prizes that they didn't actually purchase something to get. The fact is it's drawing more attention to the trail, and we're getting people out into our neighborhoods, which is one of our big goals to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting. We get a lot of questions about that here at Bandwango, and people considering maybe we should have someone take a picture of their receipt and send it in, or maybe we shouldn't include these PIN numbers on posters. And my recommendation is always just make it as easy as possible for people to be part of the trail, because that is going to lead to a better experience. People, I think, mostly have good intentions when they sign up for these passports, and they're not trying to cheat the system. I would say from Bandwango's perspective on how common that is, every time we launch a trail, I would say we have about 5 people who try to cheat, and it's very obvious because they're going to 40 taquerias in a single day, and you're like, there's no way. So I think from our perspective too here at Bandwango, it is so much about making it easy for people and just appealing to people's better instincts. I would say most people don't cheat, and those who do, it's very easily identifiable in our back end to see those behaviors and to realize, that's probably not someone who's completing this trail totally truthfully. And then, your team or our clients have the ability to say, maybe we won't give them the prize. Maybe we won't put them on the Taco Hall of Fame, and encourage them instead to do it honestly. But I think by putting the ball in the court of the consumer, you do, get probably, more flies with honey than with vinegar. So.
Yeah, and I'll also add, on the restaurant component. So while we didn't get every restaurant to opt in, we essentially included everyone. We did go out, and our staff visited all of the restaurants on the trail. We had an information sheet that we dropped off. When possible, we talked to someone. So we tried to make sure everyone was aware, and we have certainly had restaurants that wanted to be more active with us in participating. Those are the ones that we've focused more on media, for media interviews or spotlighting. And I'll tell you, we can actually see from the results, those ones that are more active in participating with us are the ones that have more check-ins. They're the ones that more people are going to. And we've seen over time as the word has gotten out, more and more restaurants are working to engage with us.
Yeah. And Kim, maybe you can speak to this as well. What did the Madden team see in terms of people engaging with your ads or with your social media? What was it like to see those restaurants maybe engage on social, or just see consumers kind of become champions of the trail in those comment sections or on those sharings?
Yeah, I actually just took that note to mention this, but I think Alan's point to reaching out to locals is super important. We are DMOs, but I still think we have a responsibility to our community and the people that live here as well. So that's probably the thing that stood out most on this social engagement was locals talking about it and inviting people. And I even saw like other DMOs commenting on there that they were coming to, hey, I'm from, Clay County, but I'm going to Kansas City, Kansas to do the taco trail today. So there were lots of also pictures posted. So they would share the post and post their own picture of them eating tacos or standing in front of a taqueria. So, just that organic reach and that organic response just created a huge buzz all around.
Yeah, absolutely. So Beth Carmichael has a question that I think, Kim, you could probably answer for us. In October, as the trail kind of started, what were the initial KPIs? Did you guys have any goals? And Alan, chime in here too. Did you have a perspective on what you thought you would drive in terms of signups or check-ins or even for media impressions? And then what about 2021? And we can get into this a little bit later. I know that the trail officially, it's ongoing, but prizes end in a few short months. I do want to talk before we leave in about 20 minutes about what you guys are doing next. So we'll hold that part of the question until the end so we can, give everybody a taste of what's coming for KCK. But if you guys could maybe tell us a little bit about what you initially thought your KPIs would be, and then, how you felt when you maybe surpassed that, or what your next set of goals are, I think that would be fun to hear for the group.
Yeah, Alan, do you want to start with your goals?
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, it was hard for us of setting firm goals, numeric goals, because this was the first trail we'd done, and we really didn't have any idea what to expect. So we were less focused on, setting metrics for how many people we thought were going to check in, and more about how much are we engaging and getting people out into our neighborhoods. Like I said, my big overall goal for our organization is how are we getting more people into our neighborhoods, and so we can certainly measure that by the number of people that are checking in. We're looking at through the Bandwango platform. We have a lot of data on where people are from, right? So when they register their phone number or their email, we get information about where they're from, so we can see that we have a great mix of locals, but we also are seeing more out of towners, and so that's some things that some actionable data we'll be able to use in the future. But so for me, is really about both engagement in terms of people going and checking in and experiencing the places, but as well as just how many people are using the pass. And we didn't set a firm goal because we didn't know how many people, but I'll tell you, October exceeded anything I thought we would do honestly in the first year. So
yeah, and I totally agree. Our goal on the paid media side was also engagement, driving people to sign up. So we didn't really know what to expect, and it took off like crazy. And so I think the paid media really helped get the campaign launched, and then it just kind of snowballed into all the earned media and all the comments and all the shares. So we had click goals and impression goals and things like that, but most important and top of the list was engagement. How are we going to drive people to sign up for the pass? And one of the most valuable things on the marketing side is we had access to the list of people that did sign up. So we were able to, like I said earlier, create lookalike audiences. And what we're going to do is that lookalike audience at the same time promote like a general awareness campaign of other things to do. They're excited about the taco trail, but now it's time let's show them all of the other unique offerings that Kansas City has. So goal-wise, again, engagement. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah.
Get off track there.
I think, the powerful thing about Bandwango's platform is so much of that first-party data exists within, that ecosystem. And to Kim's point, leveraging that for future campaigns can be such a powerful thing that although, the success of this trail is amazing, you guys have such momentum to do really cool things after this with people who have shown their interest in your destination, and, really you can bring that message home with that branding campaign that you mentioned before. So I think that's a great point. I think Beth's question is very interesting. Did we see any sort of leveling off with past signups after initial launch? And I know that we talked a little bit about this from the PR standpoint, but Alan, Kim, do you want to weigh in on that question?
Yeah, we absolutely, and I think this is something Bandwango, our rep, even mentioned to us, is that you tend to see that, right? People are really excited in the beginning, and then that does level up. October was a huge month. Again, we had over 2,500 signups just in the month of October, and each month it went down a little bit. We definitely saw the correlation with the paid media. As Kim mentioned, we ran that media October through December. We didn't have any media in January, February, and those were the low months, absolutely low months for us in terms of signups. But there was still activity there, and then it's really picked up in March with both the media campaign commencing as well as the earned media story.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think the earned media, like I said, there was 47 touches that Alan and his team tracked. So those are super important too. I mean, you got to have the balance of the paid media and the earned media. But I would just say, you need to make sure you have a plan. I'm a true believer, if you build it, they might not come. So planning is super important, and having a good strategy behind your plan and then execution of the plan. So whether that be paid or just organic, or hopefully it's a mix of both if you can do it, but definitely planning is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys had joined us early on, you probably saw the chart that Alan shared where you see those first initial rises, and then the March hits and that huge spike of signups comes in through that earned media campaign. And I think we see that a lot on the Bandwango team when clients have some kind of earned media strategy that they're deploying maybe later, or they see, okay, we're kind of leveling off, or maybe we haven't seen the push that we want in these past few months. Let's try to find a unique angle. And I think you can really see the Forbes article's impact here, because that unique angle drove a ton of people who maybe did see that first campaign and maybe didn't sign up at that point, but then this conversation starts around Forbes and tacos, and is it truly the taco capital that's on the rise? And I think that kind of unique angle is something that we see here at Bandwango work really well to drive another spike. If you can find a story within your passport, other than just having launched it, there were even some articles written for the trail that were, talking about the success of it. KCK is surprised by more than 400 signups. That kind of angle, I think, is interesting for people to pick up. And I think really you can see that in KCK's success here.
Yeah, and I'll also mention, the content development is really important, and making sure we have an ongoing strategy for that, as you said. So, that's something we're working on now is creating content that we can kind of further tell the story. So we have all these great taquerias, but we've noticed there's a lot that are, in supermarkets, right? And so, kind of creating kind of special content, Taco Tuesdays are a big promotional opportunity for us. So looking at those things of how we can kind of further promote. I would say the other thing that we've recognized in the data is we have a lot of people that have downloaded the pass but haven't used it yet. And so, how can we activate more of those people that have shown that interest but haven't actually got out and checked in anywhere? So those are some of the things we're working on, in the coming months.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to that. Creating the story is so important, and the story within the story. I mean, there's just endless opportunities here. The story about the owners of the taquerias, we're looking at that kind of story. The story of someone traveling just for tacos, they love tacos. It's kind of endless, the opportunity there for storytelling.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So this question, are you sharing your data with restaurants, and are the restaurants saying that they're seeing return on this investment? Alan, do you want to kind of talk through what your response has been like from the merchants included in this passport?
Yeah, so like I said, I think some of the restaurants that we've built the strongest relationships with, that, you know, they're our go-tos for media interviews. They are definitely seeing business pick up. I actually have one of our chamber was joking with me the other day and says, I can't go to my favorite taqueria anymore because there's all these people there now. And so we are seeing kind of anecdotal stories there. You know, we're still working on, you know, again, it's kind of this, it's also, this is a great way to build those relationships. You know, of some of these businesses weren't businesses we had existing relationships with. And so, you know, we're showing our worth as a DMO to some of these groups. And we've really activated more, not just with restaurants, but with our neighborhood groups and our neighborhood associations. And that's where I think we've seen a lot of collaboration that didn't exist in the past. So it's also a great way to connect with those folks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the questions that came in, did restaurants offer a discount or incentive? This is a question that happens a lot from the Bandwango side too. Some of these culinary trails, you don't have to, you know, request a discount from a merchant to be involved in a check-in challenge like this, because the goal really is that people go and check in. And I think, you know, we get questions sometimes about which are more popular, trails that do or do not include discounts. And what I'll say about this is that, you know, sometimes in Alan's case, making it super easy to engage merchants who maybe wouldn't have signed up if they had required a discount, or if they would have needed to educate their staff on doing a PIN number check-in. Making it really easy can sometimes lead to those long-lasting relationships like Alan is talking about. So I think if the DMO sees an opportunity to create those connections or to facilitate something, and they've got the budget to do some really cool prizes, a culinary trail like this doesn't always need to request those discounts from merchants. So that's my side on it from the Bandwango end. But Alan, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, you know, yeah, we certainly didn't, but, you know, I think where that has come in is, you know, as we've had, we actually hosted early on, we hosted a group of influencers at restaurants. And so that was an opportunity for us to work with some of the restaurants that were interested in offering some sort of discount, you know, so they were offering us, you know, hosting at their facility and free food and that kind of thing. So I think there's ways that you can do that without having to give it to the consumer. As I said, I think this shows the consumer doesn't need a discount incentive to get out and do something, you know, as long as you have a strong concept. You know, it doesn't mean it's wrong to do that, but in this case, it wasn't necessary for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I know that we've got just 8 minutes left. I have last questions. So Alan, I know that you've talked about this before, and we have a deck that we can share after this conversation too, but can you maybe just touch briefly on like how you recommend destinations starting a trail program like this, or really getting their feet wet with product development?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to share those slides?
Sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you know, there's really three things. I've spent a lot of time actually studying trails, believe it or not. um, and there's really three, I think, tips that I would give to everyone in terms of how to structure your trail. And with some examples that I found of some trails that I thought were really interesting. So the first, again, is telling your story. This is really about branding yourself and creating an experience that others can enjoy. That's gonna help you further your destination. And there's three things I would say. The first is be authentic. You need to be who you are. It should surprise no one that Buffalo, New York has a buffalo wing trail, right? I mean, that's authentic to who they are. So I think that's the first thing. If you're thinking about what to do with the trail, think about those authentic experiences that are part of who you are as a place. Another one, Las Cruces, New Mexico, a green chili trail. Again, that just makes sense, right? There's tons of taco trails around the country. It should be no surprise that there's taco trails in Texas and in California. And again, it's finding those things, whether it's food or whether it's something else, that's authentic to who you are. The second thing I would say is be specific. I think early on there was a suggestion in our office that maybe we need to do a Mexican food trail, so you know we could have other types of food included. And we really zeroed in on tacos. And it doesn't mean that these places don't serve other things, but people want something specific. I found this one in Indiana, a tenderloin trail. You know, this could have been a home cooked food trail, right? But it doesn't have the same ring as a tenderloin trail. You know what you're getting. And people that are passionate about that, they're going to be much more interested in visiting your trail. Donut Trail, there's several of these around the country. So being specific, I think, is really going to help you be successful. And the last thing I'd say is be creative. I think in all of these, people are creative. Here's one I found in Kentucky that it's a beer cheese trail. This destination has some sort of history with beer cheese. And so they created a trail and gotten, a lot of their bars and restaurants to actually have that on the menu, maybe places that even didn't do that, so they could create a trail around it. So those are my tips. Be authentic, be specific, and be creative.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you for sharing that, Alan. Kim, I want to know from your perspective, what's one piece of advice that you have from maybe the media or agency side, that you would share with a destination who's maybe thinking about doing this? What can make them successful from your perspective?
I think number one would be the story. What story are you telling? Find your uniqueness. My advice was to follow Alan's advice of be authentic, be creative, and be specific. You can do a very broad trail, but one of the greatest things about this kind of niche honed-in campaign is we're able to track conversions. We're able to see the direct spending back to the community. Overall general awareness branding campaigns, sometimes you can't do that. Here we can see what people are searching for. We kind of know what they're doing when they come to town, but this is specific. We know exactly what they're doing. So I would just do exactly what Alan's slide said. That would be my find your story. I think that's way more important. If it's a good story, it's going to be easy to market. So I think that the story is most important, and you can find the platforms to deliver the media after that.
Yeah, that's great advice. So, kind of along these lines, I think one of the questions that we get from the Bandwango perspective, when it comes to being specific, how do you sell that to stakeholders? How do you make sure that the message doesn't get diluted with all of those voices in the room? So, Alan, can you maybe give us just a taste of how that conversation went for you and how you really pitched this and kept it true to the vision of being that specific taco trail?
Yeah, well, listen, it's really, I think, about knowing your brand, and you've got to know who you are as a place. And I think if you don't know that's going to make all of this harder, because when we started talking about this, it became obvious to people. When we started talking about tacos, everyone said, "Oh yeah, we have such a great taco scene. I don't know why no one ever talks about that," right? So it's also was this kind of unknown, which I think is also part of the magic of what's happened here. It was authentic but unknown, and I think that's a special combination. And so I think I always would tell people, I do branding. That's kind of how I started. And, your brand it's like a book. It's the story of who you are of a place, and it shouldn't surprise anyone, right? So if you come up with some idea that everyone kind of scratches their heads around, it's probably not the right idea. It needs to be something that make people go, "Oh yeah, that's totally who we are." It's in a nutshell, I guess that's what I would say there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I completely agree. From the Bandwango perspective, sometimes we'll have people come to us with these really unique trail ideas, but if their destination isn't known for that, or if it doesn't fit within their conversation as, an organization, then it's probably not the right thing, because you need people to get passionate about something. And I think that's a really great point. So last question. What's next for KCK? What's the next trail? Give us a little bit of a tease for what you guys are kind of thinking of next.
Yeah, well, so I got ambitious with our team in the beginning, and I said I want to do 2 trails a year, and so we may not be achieving that. I think we may be sticking to more about like 1 trail a year, but we have a couple on our short list. The next one is going to be quite different. Again, going on the diversity that we're trying to portray and getting people in our neighborhoods. We're tentatively calling it a legacy trail, and it's really more of a heritage history-based trail. You're going to follow 5 different journeys of these 5 different groups that settled in Kansas City, Kansas. So you can follow the Native American experience, or the Black experience, or the Latino experience, and learn about the people that settled here, the struggles and the successes that they've had. So it's a little bit more niche because it is history, and I think history is a little bit more of a niche experience, but it will be a great way for us to tell our story and get people out in our neighborhoods. And then, beyond that, church architecture, we have a lot of unique church steeples, and so that's one that we're looking at, a church steeple tour.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much to Kim and Alan for sharing their insight with us. This has been such a fun webinar to moderate and to talk about. I think the Taco Trail puts a smile on everybody's face. So thank you both again. For everyone watching, share this recording with your friends. It's going to be live on bandwango.com in a few days. And we've also got a follow-up written case study coming. So that's something that you can look forward to as well. And if you have any questions about how Alan and Madden pulled this off, we're happy to connect off channel. Our information is available within the big marker link where you signed up. And you can also find us on LinkedIn and connect there. I think we'd all be happy to chat more with anybody who wanted a little bit more information about this. So thank you again so much for tuning in. I hope you all are having tacos for lunch and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks.